Good evening, everyone. I believe I'm live. Therefore, I am live. I guess that's my new shtick or my new spiel. I'm here to review the Green Knight movie by David Lowery. I didn't really know who this filmmaker was before, but he's definitely caught my attention. I'll try not to look at any questions, comments, concerns, points of emphasis that you all have until I've finished or completed the 2 cents or the mere thoughts that I had on the movie. Not a lot. And if there are no commentary, only subscribers are. Shout out to what I mentioned last time, where I learned that from. But subscribers are the only ones who could comment. So I see a few of you have jumped in. If you're subscribers, feel free to chat and feel extra free to hit me up at patreon.com/aksum, patreon.com/aksum. You could also join the YouTube channel directly at either $5 or $1 a month. People who are even greater can go even greater than that. And you can do super chats and super stickers to really get your comments highlighted. I think at any level. I don't know. People were very generous last time when I was talking about the Ethiopia question and the goings on over there, the political machinations of the global American empire. Crap, why haven't I watched this yet? Yeah, I thought the same thing. It's been a minute. I don't even actually know when it came out. Yeah, it came out this year, 2021. We're at the end of the year, so I took a while to get to it, but, now I'm interested in David Lowery's other stuff like A Ghost Story and The Old Man and the Gun. It looks like he does spins on classic tales that people are already accustomed to. Nothing Burger I'm not familiar with. I haven't seen anything by him before The Green Knight. Just watched The Green Knight. So if you're someone who is allergic to spoilers, here's your spoiler alert, and the only one you're going to get some intestinal fortitude and move on. So the lead or the protagonist is played by the actor Dev Patel, whose character name is Sir Gawain or something like that. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing it. As a member of the West Asian subcontinent as well as the Horn of Africa, I will mention that he is from the what used to be called the Indian subcontinent, what is now being rebranded as South Asia. And some people I've seen on Twitter arguing about that. I'm not from South Asia, although we do have some connections, especially through Kerala, where there are the most Christians that I've seen, especially the Christians who were originally East Syriac Rite, but later become West Syriac Rite because they lost that connection. And so, sometime I think in the 1800s, get reconnected to our communion of Ethiopians, now Indians, Armenians, Syrians of the West Rite, and more rather than Mar, and the Copts, of course. So anyway, I didn't know all the things he was in. I had to look it up. Some of this stuff I'll comment on, briefly about what I've seen, what I haven't. He was in Slumdog Millionaire. My fam went to go see it. I never actually saw that, but maybe I should go back and watch it. He's actually the voice of Zuko in The Last Airbender, the American anime. And that blows my mind because that means I've been listening to his voice without knowing that he's been into that. If any of you have any voice connections in Hollywood, I would love to branch off and start side hustling in the voice space, meaning beyond what I'm doing now in actual animes. I saw that one of my favorite fighters, the Nigerian middleweight champion of the world, Israel Adesanya, just got this role in one of the iterations of Baki. I think that was a Netflix produced anime as well. I don't know if it was originally a Japanese manga, but that one's a Netflix one that I've seen episodes of, and he's got a character on there that he voices. So that's badass. I like that Dev Patel did that, and I'm surprised that I'd heard his voice already there. He's in the newsroom. He's very clean shaven in the newsroom, so I had to look up the images again because I watched that show religiously. I liked the back and forth. I didn't agree with all the politics, but I liked the pace of the dialogue. Although some people think there's too much logocentrism or too much focus on the word um, in that kind of dialogue that is similar to maybe it's the more masculine version of Gossip Girl, which has that sort of quick-paced dialogue as well. He was in, Chappie, which I didn't see, but Chappie's made by the District 9 folks, and District 9 is one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time, and I'm a big sci-fi person, always have been since I was a kid, always sci-fi and fantasy. He was in Hotel Mumbai. I didn't see that one, but I've heard good reviews from people close to me who are Bollywood fans. So getting into the movie itself, there's a lot of surrealism and magic realism. The colors are super intense. There's a lot of different mythical creatures, but then also like real people. And I think Game of Thrones did this especially early on, not so much later on, but having this balancing act between asking you, the audience member, to decide whether or not, something is a trip because of a dream or because of some shrooms or other psychedelics, or if magic is actually real. And there's this interplay with witches and wizards and ghosts and saints and giants and tree people and all this stuff that you would see. And you don't know if it's being imagined or if it's being real, if it's historical fiction or if it's fantasy or if it's trying to be genre blending on purpose. There's also throughout the movie this kind of either deep nihilism or the preaching of the preacher from the book of Ecclesiastes, which is definitely meant to be read aloud and recited at funerals. It's in its entirety, like the good folks, Father Mark Boulos and Dr. Richard Benton, did at their own family's funerary rite or funerary services. And in fact, they read it on repeat, which is a bold move that I have tried to replicate on much smaller scales in the funerary services that I've participated in as well. So there's this idea that nothing matters, that there is no meaning, the sort of what YouTube speak would call the black pill. But then you get the one word I didn't know that I had to look up, verdigris, Vrdigris. And we got our dictionary definition here: a bright bluish green incrustation or patina formed on copper or brass by atmospheric oxidation, consisting of basic copper carbonate. It's funny, I did the word bisbis as one of my Amharic words of the day on Twitter, and bispis talks about the meaning of bispis, or the way I wrote it is worthlessness, from the sense of corruption and decay is happening to it. It is slowly dissolving. It is becoming less and less of what it was and more of something else that is greater than it, that is more eternal. And so this verdigris, or this verdantness or nature or greenery, is out of the mouth of one character who was possibly a witch, said to be very unforgiving and inevitably and inexorably marching to take back what belongs to it, meaning you and even the tombstone. So any sort of human and any human artifacts that we erect to try to extend our memory through time, nature kind of has this cold way of taking it back and growing upon it and consuming it. So that is a question that gets either resolved or unresolved at the end. I won't spoil it that much. The other big theme in the film is the honor of a knight, and you see this honor tested at many ways through kind of normal courage and warnings, later through sexual temptation and the ideas of loyalty and faithfulness in that regard, which is seen throughout scriptures, particularly with the relationship that God and his people, be they Israel slash Jacob, or in the New Testament, the church. You see negative examples of it in Ezekiel and in Hosea. You see positive examples of it in the Song of Songs, as well as in the letter or the epistle to the Ephesians, even in the hymnography of the church. Saint Yared or Jared the Oxumite sings to Wedduso Marat Watablo Weldohe Alika Adam. She praised the bridegroom, the bride that is, praises the bridegroom and says unto him, Boy, my brother, your word is good. Your word is pleasant. So anyway, that kind of honor, that ideal of honor in normal, kind of ordinary uh, courage that you would think of in terms of Joseph Campbell's The Hero Journey, just crossing a threshold, but also in sexual temptation and loyalty and faithfulness. And ultimately, what I think ties back to the potential nihilism or the preacher from Ecclesiastes, wisdom from the Ketubim or from the extra writings, the third section of the Hebrew Bible, uh, this idea of facing death and facing the fear of death. And through that confrontation, seeing what type of merit you have as a human being. And again, a lot of realism, magic realism that is, and surrealism plays throughout that so that you can see all of these ideas all of these ideas play out. So to kind of recap, you have the honor, you have the inevitability of greenery taking back what belongs to it, all of the genre bending, and I mentioned the other films that he's been a part of, meaning Dev Patel, the character Sir Gawain, a little bit also of this filmmaker David Lowery, whom I did not know before. So hopefully you'll explore more David Lowery, and I will too, and go back and look at Dev Patel's catalog or his filmography if you haven't so far. Now I'll get to the questions for a few minutes and maybe keep this short and get out of here. CF, how much of the travel lockdowns have more to do with the Pfizer negotiations getting the middle finger? I don't know. I don't know. And we're looking out for all the different variants. Don't get me kicked out of YouTube, man. I'm trying to stay here and I'm trying to have longevity, and you're bringing up the plague. We don't want to talk about the plague too much because then the plague will get us. Um, Go get your organic vitamin D from the sun and supplement if you'd like to. They just forgot. Ala Abdanye loved this movie, was confused the first watch. Oh, you watched it more than once. Yeah, I I watched it and I got it. I didn't want to spoiler alert, but I already gave that warning, so I can say now the film ends inconclusively like one of my favorite films, Inception does. And so I think this is part of the postmodern aesthetic is to not give you a definite answer, to let you decide and determine what has happened. And especially with this genre bending between historical fiction in the Arthurian universe and this sort of fantasy that exists with Merlin like figures and witches. And by the way, I didn't mention before there's like Orthodox icons because it's like the Western rite before a lot of modernization hits it. And so you see a lot of iconography and you see bishops that are very high church that you might not see as much in today's Episcopalianism or Anglicanism, or if you do, it will be for high events, related to like the royal family or something like that. But it's great to see that in the English tradition. Um, there's some funny stuff. I don't know who cares anymore, but there's some funny stuff about King Arthur being more Anglo and having this Indian subcontinent or Asian fellow, who, by the way, is interestingly enough, looking into Patel a little bit. He's a Londoner himself, so he's definitely a part of that lineage. And then his parents are from the old East Africa Protectorate in Kenya. So they're Indians. I don't know what caste, but via Africa. So there's a connection there with us, especially with a lot of Kenyans nowadays showing their Pan African support, or at least Pan East African support for Ethiopia, which is, of course, the jewel. And I am so hyped for Robert Eager's next movie, The Northman. We'll have to put The Green Knight on top of the list with your description. I don't know much about The Northman. What is The Northman about? If you could tell me briefly. I see it's a historical thriller, but I don't know much about it. Will be interesting maybe to check that out. CF, haven't seen it. Gonna bounce. It's worth the watch. No one does. Da, 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 da. Yeah. All right, bounce if you're gonna bounce. Gotta have. Yes, it is. It's definitely worth the watch. Yeah, that's dope. Okay. I think I addressed everyone's questions. If there are any pressing questions, comments, concerns, points of emphasis, or de emphasis, I am opening to hear it. They forgot was in regards to magic in Game of Thrones. Yeah, there was a narrative memory and a cultural hereditary memory. It just seemed magical to them because having forgotten a piece. Yeah, again, I think in the beginning, it's different than the end. You know, when you're fighting like a zombie army, and there's still some disbelief pretty close to the end, but when you're fighting a zombie army, it's hard to suppress the magic and the knowledge of magic. And when you have like three giant dragons fighting as well. But earlier on, before certain people see some of that stuff, it's kind of a question of the efficacy and efficiency of magic in that world and how foolhardy and backwards it is, and how people are just having more of a realpolitik around the throne itself, which I always compare to the period of history called Zaman Masafant, or the era of princes, or the era of judges, or the era of rulers or leaders in Ethiopian history, which was kind of a 70, 80-year period of oligarchy before the rise of Emperor Theodore II. And we Ethiopians, I'm sure, are looking forward to the rise of Emperor Theodore III, whatever his government name is right now. Yeah, they got a hard lesson real quick. Thank you for that comment. So I'll give anyone maybe 30 seconds to a minute to ask any last questions. Other than that, I can head out. I think I covered it and reviewed it pretty well. You don't want to say the whole thing. Just give people a gursha or a taste, a little mouthful, and they'll come to their own conclusions, which I think is why Lowry left it inconclusive. I prefer more conclusive things. I think it takes courage. Dr. Richard Benton, actually, when I was discussing with him about interpretation, and he's a very great, not just polymath, but polyglot, maybe a better polyglot, I would say, than I am. In fact, he had the Loving Languages blog years ago. I think he stopped blogging there, but he continues to podcast relentlessly at the Bible as Literature podcast, which is a part of, and in fact, the main brand of the Ephesus School Network. He also has a book on Hosea. I don't know if it's out already or if it's going to come out soon, and hopefully we'll get him on the program to discuss that. But one of the things that he told me in interpretation is that it takes guts, it takes intestinal fortitude, it takes courage and bravery and honor to commit to an interpretation, to commit to a translation, because then you have to know whether or not you have made the correct decision or not. Uh, Kalab, no spoilers, was gonna comment on it. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could comment on it. I already said it, and I gave a warning to people in the beginning. Northman is an adaptation of the Icelandic Amleth by the director of the two great movies, The Witch and The Lighthouse. All recommended. Yes, I need to check those out. The Lighthouse interested me, but I didn't see it. The Witch I hadn't heard of. Iceland is a very interesting place. You know, I'm a elementary school teacher, and having to learn some of the stuff, we're covering the continents, and we were discussing, you know, where exactly is the border between North America and Europe, and it wasn't as clear to me as I thought it was previously. And what it seems like is the case is that Greenland is geographically North America, but politically Europe. It's got this, I think, original occupancy of the Inuit or Eskimo or whatever you want to call them, the people that migrated from Asia that make up also the areas of Canada and Alaska, the indigenous folks there. And then you have this like Dutch and other, I think, or is it Danish? I think it's Danish and other Scandinavian influence. And then, of course, right next to Greenland, you have Iceland, and I think Iceland is more squarely, you could say, both geographically and politically a part of Europe. But the interplay between Iceland and Greenland and those cultures, those Eurasian cultures meeting, the Scandinavians having traveled out of Africa and then gone so west to that point, and then the Inuit or Eskimo or indigenous of Canada, whatever you want to call them, having left Africa and gone so east that it's a perfect sort of horseshoe theory of cultures that are all go back to the original 50 or 60,000 or so Eurasians that were ultimately Africans before that, and then seeing those cultures meet again after so many thousands of years apart. I mean, that's just an interesting story for humanity. See if I gotta watch The Green Knight first. Peace, homie. All right, peace. Qala Ab found it nice how he lived a meaningless life up to the point of his death. He could have gone back and been a hero, but had an increasingly worse life. But instead, he decides to accept his death, thereafter failing the trials. So he dies with meaning, like a reverse nihilism, but still willingly dying, but with meaning. Yeah, but that's the thing is we don't know. We still don't know. Um, you know, there's like this magic amulet that he has in the form of a belt, almost looks like a martial arts belt, and we don't know whether that thing has efficacy or not. We don't know if the Green Knight is gonna enforce the justice of his game or apply mercy. Justice is a one size fits all plan for all people, and mercy is the exception to the rule. It's the tailor-made solution. So we don't know which way he's gonna do. So yeah, yeah, he tosses the belt. What I'm saying is we don't know whether it had efficacy or not. So I mean that's one question. But then you also goes from there to the hand of the Green Knight. You also don't know if it's like a momentary clarity and then he like goes and gets the belt back again like it's a trick or something, or if it's his resolve oscillating and tergiversating or going up and down. So we don't know what it is. Anyway, thank you all. I think we had a beautiful little evening together with you fine gentlemen, and I'll get out of here.